Okay, so we had a little bit of a jinx incident recently because somebody missed the memo on wave management and she got a tiny bit fed. So apparently now I have to talk about some hidden tech so you don't end up like this guy. First and the most important thing you have to know are level timers. I do realize it's basic as fuck, but if you played in Master ELO and saw people disrespect level 2 and die, you would try to explain it too. The most important ones are level 2 and 3 power spikes, and they are also the easiest to get the hang of because they are the same in 99% of the cases. If you are playing solo lane, you get level 2 on the second wave after killing 1 melee minion, and level 3 by killing 2 melee minions on the third wave. But if instead you are playing on bot lane, it's 3 melee minions from second wave for level 2, and 1 melee minion from fourth wave for level 3. This is obviously if there was nothing going on, but I would assume none of you is stupid enough to dismiss that fact, right? Anyways, now that you've managed not to fuck up your level lead by AFKing, the next thing you have to know is wave advantage. Well, it speaks for itself. It's about having more minions than enemy. And guess what? Despite how simple it is, surprisingly a lot of people ignore it, including High Diamond, so let me explain it. Minions funny damage OP. But it's not just that. Apart from advantage during a fight, Big Wave actually allows you to do multiple things, like fuck up a dive, but first I'm gonna show you how to do it. And worry not, my bronze friends, it's simpler than you think. Just remember that you can't always get it, because some champions are just too funny for that. Anyways, all you have to learn to do that is the slow push. The way it works is,
hit the funny minions when they get low health.
That's literally all. When the waves meet, you want to start killing ranged minions, and just last hit the rest. It will allow you to stack the waves, while keeping the minions closer to your side of the map. And to properly finish the slow push, you actually want to start killing the minions as fast as you can the moment next wave comes, or just before. That will give you a lot more time to do something. Another thing you can do is to actually force enemy wave to slow push towards you. It's mostly used on the first wave, especially when enemy is a bit kinky and decided to leash the jungler. If done correctly, it will make them lose 1 or 2 minions, giving you a huge early advantage. And it's honestly very simple to do. You can either pull the wave by getting aggro of all minions, or attack ranged minions once and instantly hide on bush. GG easy, free lane, ADC diff, what can I say? And since I've mentioned fast push, I'm gonna briefly talk about it now too. Just listen to me very carefully. You push the wave fast. I know, it's a very complex skill to learn. You basically want to do it whenever you want to avoid fighting enemies, or when you want to do the opposite because you have funny poke support or long range skills that allow you to bully enemies while staying outside the tower range. And just like with slow push, it gives you more tempo over enemies, just not as much. Now on to the most important and the hardest part of the wave management, freezing. So a lot of people will tell you to keep 3 minions more on your side and GG go next. Well, no, they are just gaslighting you into the most basic and not very consistent type of freeze. Yes, it can sometimes work, but most of the time 3 is the bare minimum, and it also depends if they are melee or ranged and the state of the game, but fortunately this one doesn't matter as much, so I'm not gonna bother. For example, if they are all melee minions, 3 might be enough against a normal wave, but it's still better to have 4. And for the cannon wave, you want to make sure there is 4 or even 5, and most of them being melee. 3 will not be enough, and your wave will end up slow pushing. You can also use more ranged minions instead, which is actually preferable, because it's a lot easier to control, since melee minions have funny AI and they tend to kill themselves in game of course. To avoid it you can also try freezing slightly further from the tower. So in short, you want to keep more minions than you think you do, and preferably do it with tons of ranged minions, or do it away from the tower. And the last thing you need to know, don't be afraid to thin out the wave. If you see your wave is dying too fast, just kill a minion or 2 to slow it down, so the freeze stays in place. It takes some practice, but it's really worth learning, because when you know how many minions is enough it can let you do something very funny that is very much underutilized. Just because it's so hard to do, and you don't get that many opportunities. But god damn it, if you pull it off you basically have a free lane. The thing I'm talking about is a very funny freeze recall. It doesn't happen very often, but it can pretty much win you the lane. So when enemy push the wave to recall, and you manage to catch it and freeze it, you can actually thin it out just enough so it's pushing to you very slowly, and give yourself enough time to recall and come back. It takes a lot of game knowledge to consistently do it, but the most important thing you need is practice. You will fuck it up many times, because knowing how much you have to thin out the wave will take some time, but it's definitely worth learning. It also helps a lot with the normal freeze, because you learn the hard way how many minions is enough, and you'll know if you fucked it up a lot sooner. And I know sometimes you can't do any of it, because enemies are too strong and you can't fully contest the wave, or some other bullshit. In those situations, there is one simple trick that allows you to deny the enemy doing any of the previously mentioned stuff, or just annoy them. It's about matching the push. The idea behind it is to keep the same amount of minions on both sides. So if you see enemy pushing the wave, you push it too. They stop attacking, you stop too. If enemy decided to commit the funny against the government, you fucking guessed it, you do it too. That's literally all. You mimic what the enemy does with the wave. It keeps the wave constantly in a neutral spot, so it's harder to get ganked, it makes the dive almost impossible, and it also denies a freeze and pressure on tower. Very useful to do when you have no idea what to do with yourself, or you know you can't do much on the lane. Of course it doesn't always work either, but the enemy would have to be zoning you out from the wave, which, let's be honest, if you didn't know it before, you are probably in an ELO where you could 1v1 Draven as Yuumi. But if you have a more human rank, where people think a tiny bit more than monkey see monkey fight, another trick you can do is reset the wave state. Well, it's not actual reset, but it allows you to force the waves in the middle of the lane to avoid ganks. So basically, if you pushed in the wave under enemy tower, and more minions come, you can force their aggro and make them follow you. It's not very consistent, but it's always worth trying. To do it, you have two options. First one is just walking up closer to the wave and attacking minions before they aggro anything. Second option is to attack enemies when the minions are close enough. They are coded to aggro you when you fight enemies, so they will follow you. After that, you just slowly lead them to the middle of the lane. And guess what? Your wave will stop where you want it to. Wave will still push towards the enemy tower, so not only will you keep the lane pressure, but you will also be in a much safer spot. Another thing worth knowing is how to minimize the chance of enemy freezing. It only happens when the wave bounces from your tower, but it doesn't require any knowledge to do, and it's sometimes worth considering. Basically, all you have to do is to kill all enemy minions before your wave gets to them. This allows minions to stay in a neutral position, because look what happens when they instead clump up together. They start focusing the same target, and that allows them to slow push towards the enemy. Most likely you don't need that level of awareness, but it's still worth knowing. Maybe it will save you from funny top lane freeze into a 4-level gap. And the last thing worth knowing is a bit more for advanced players, and is also heavily related to tempo, but I'll go more in depth about it in another video. All you have to know is that in mid and late game, you don't actually have to instantly kill all the waves. You can, in fact, just last hit them. When the wave is in a safe spot for you and your team, stalling the wave can give you more tempo over the enemy for objectives, or just allow you stack a bigger wave to push the tower, while keeping you in a safe spot. And if the enemy walks up to take the wave, they will most definitely regret it. Now that's pretty much all you need to know, but if you still have any questions, just comment down below. Thanks, bye.